So you are welcome. That is the end of my presentation. Now we move on to the main cross of the evening. So we are going to be discussing, like you all know, my kind of story. What really has inspired you? What has transformed your life? What has brought about a paradigm shift in your, in your career as a writer? I remember reading a book by Obi Egbonam, The Rape of Lysistrata. That was a long time ago. I actually stole it from my sister's box. There was a book box she kept. She had graduated from University of Calabar, so she came down with a box. So out of curiosity, I opened the box and I saw this book with beautiful cover page, and I picked it up. Going through it, I saw that The Rape of Lysistrata, beautifully written. Flipping through the first page kept me spellbound. I did not know when I went through everything within 24, about 2 days. I got done with that book, and ever since then, I keep having a momentary flashback, even though the writer is now late, Obi Egbuna, I think from Ibuzo, can't remember that name very well. So that is the kind of story we intend to hear today. And I'm going to start as the Spirit leads me. So what has inspired you over the years as a writer? What are those unforgettable encounters you've had with books? So I'd like to begin with Ayodele Olofintuade. Could you please take us on a journey, telling us about the books that have really made unforgettable impact in your life as a writer?
So I grew up. I spent a lot of my growing up years with my grandfather, who was a bookie and had a lot of books in his house. But by the time I knew him, he was blind, so he couldn't read those books again. He had books of Braille, but those ones are like how do I put it down? I couldn't read those ones, but he had some classics that were not in Braille that I had to learn how to read. So he was one that actually taught me how to read in Yoruba. So I read the classics. I read something and all the other books read by Dio Fagua. And then as I grew up, I came in contact with other books written by Westerners. I read a lot of M&Bs in my secondary school days, but the books that actually changed my life were written by Black women. And that's towards this part of my life, because my life, people grow and change. But before then, one of the people that actually made a lot of that I can say is a very big influence in my writing is Wole Soyinka, funny enough. And the funniest thing was when I was reading his books, I actually didn't understand what he was saying. But of course, I remember clearly, Brother Jero, that changed my view of what literature should be and how literature should be written. And that's why I actually went and started reading his other books. That's The Child of Brother Jero. And then, of course, there's Chuma Okolo, who changed my life about writing, because he taught me that you can play with language, that you can play with the English language, you can blend other languages with English language and still get your point across. I would say that Chuma Okolo's book,
hello, you still there?
Really, really heavily influenced my last book, Lakwi Boto Chronicles, A Brief History of Badly Behaved Women, because I used that style of writing. Another person that influenced me is Adelaide, who wrote Under the Brown Rusted Roofs. Her book also changed my view of what literature should be. But that was in the latter part of my life when I started reading more Black women. And of course, I started researching Yoruba histories. And now my major influence, funny enough, are not books, but they are oral stories as told by the women I meet. Because I am a big researcher and adherent. I don't know how to put it. So I go to a lot of these Osha places where there are Ojubo, and I participate. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Am I talking to myself?
No, we're with you. Ayodele.
So I meet a lot of women and they share their stories with me, and they share the stories of Ifa, and I've learned so much about my ancestry, about Rumila, and it's like these are things that influenced me. And when it comes to American writers, I meet Toni Morrison, of course, Black women writers. There's Audre Lorde, whose writing actually like completely like turned the way I saw women's writing. I mean, for a period of 3 years, I stopped reading. I focused mainly on Black women writers, and it has had such a big influence on my work, on my research, on the things I choose to read, and the kind of literature I recommend to people. At first, I focused on Asian writers, Harumi Mukarome, or I've forgotten his name, and a couple of Murakami, thank you very much, and a couple of other Asian writers. I read all their books, and I won't forget Helen Oyeyemi. She's an amazing writer. I read all her books. Nnedi, where will I start from? Nnedi Okorafor. I mean, Nnedi Okorafor is actually one that influenced my love for writing fantasy. Not like influenced my love for writing fantasy. She's actually like the one that actually like kind of opened my eyes. Like I said, I'm not influenced by just one person's voice. It's like so many people. I've read so many books. I've been reading since I was like, God knows, 5 years, 6 years. My mom can't even remember who taught me how to read. She just knows that I started picking up books because my mom too she loves books. She's a bibliophile, and she always has books around the house. She just knows that I started picking them. I remember clearly, of course, when I was about 10 years old, that I stole Lucky. I think that was written by Daniel Steele. And I was still into the toilet and turn on the light and be reading it, because I know my mom will come and catch me if I use my torch underneath my bed sheet in my room. So I've also tried to read the classics, but I won't say they were like great influences to me, because the voices are not like similar to the voices in my head. I call them the voices in my head, and the voices in my head are actually speaking Yoruba. So when after I know story, if you follow my works, you see that even my short stories are heavily influenced by Yoruba histories, particularly as told in Ifa. I write a lot of, and I've been experimenting lately with science fiction, as like the things that I'm learning about our people. Like I didn't even know that we had dragons in Nigeria, in Yoruba. In Ifa and Yoruba, until I went to Oshobo lately and discovered Iyamokbo, who was Osho's best friend, and a dragon. So these are things that I can't say I've stopped learning, or like there's one particular book that influenced me, but I do pay homage every day to Black African writers, to researchers, women who have been doing research about being Yoruba and being a woman. I'm a big time feminist, which was why I was surprised that this is not that bio for me was a 2011 bio that was, I think it's up on, what's it called, that website that they put all these things on. I don't know who did it. So I'm no longer that person. I've gone way past that person. I mean, like presently, like I'm writing a trilogy. I've finished one, and I'm writing about Efushetu Anambra. The book is going to explore her life. I mean, I've read everything there is written about her. I've watched, when I was young, I watched the film when I was young about this woman that was so vilified. And I thought she was just another figure of somebody's imagination, until I found out that she was a real woman in like Yoruba history. So these are really important. I can say these are the things that influences my writing. But I'm going to be talking about one person who also has changed my thoughts about what it means to write. And of course, she's a woman. Her name is Zukiswa Wana, and she wrote a travelogue called Hardly Working, and which is an amazing thing considering how difficult travel in Africa is. And Zukiswa actually traveled Africa and wrote a book about it. I love reading travelogues. I have a lot of them, but this is the first time that I'm reading a Black woman writing about traveling in Africa. Usually it's white people that are traveling to Greece. I've read so many of them. I have my favorite, whose name I can't remember because I read so much. So But Zukiswa right now is like my favorite, most favorite writer because she traveled Africa and she documented her travels, and it is funny. It's like one of the funniest books I've read. I mean, I used to think that Under the Brown Rooster was funny until I read Zukiswa, and she's such an